We appreciate your company this afternoon. We'll start with the nomination and the vetting of the Supreme Court justices. Now, Justice Hafisata Amaleboba, the second woman nominated to the Supreme Court, has just concluded a rigorous vetting session before Parliament's Appointment Committee. Appointed to the Court of Appeal in 2022 by former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, she was one of 15 justices elevated that year. Now, prior to her appellate role, Justice Amaleboba served on the High Court bench, where she handled several high-profile cases, including her role in the three-member panel that adjudicated the widely publicized Dr. McPalm coup trial, a coup d'etat trial. Now, she brings deep expertise in family law and land law and alternate dispute resolution. We'll delve deeper into some of the perspectives she shared with the committee. But first, let's cross over to the committee room and speak with my colleague James Aveji for some details on particularly that clash between the minority and majority during this particular vet. And James, tell us what really sparked the clash.
Well, it all started even before Minority Leader Alexander Penyumakin began making his statement or took his session to question the nominee. So before he began his questioning, the Majority Leader, Mahama Yariga, walked into the vetting committee room and took his seat right beside Roxy. When the turn of the minority leader, at the time, the deputy chairman of the committee, Honorable Rickett Hagan, was the one who was presiding over affairs. And so he left the seat and yielded the seat to the minority leader, who said that he had an indication that the majority leader, Mahama Yariga, would also want to have some input. Remember, Mahama Yariga is not a member of the committee, but per the orders of the House, leadership of Parliament have unlimited, restriction to have access to any committee proceedings at any point in time and make input. And so he said that he got the indication that Honorable Mahama Yariga would want to be engaging the nominee. The chairman should allow the majority leader, Mahama Yariga, to have his turn so that he, the ranking member, would have the final bite of the vetting process. But the chairman of the committee,
Well, I think we have a network challenge, and we'll try and reconnect with my colleague, but I can't. All right. James, I can hear you now. Please proceed.
So that was the initial disagreement between the three of them, but the chairman insisted that he continues and take the floor. And so he began. At a point, he was inquiring about whether or not there has been some infractions on the Constitution when President John Dramani Mahama imposed salary sanction on his appointees who were not able to file their assets on his initial 17th April deadline, I should think. You remember that the Fourth Estate publication in the middle or early April indicated that about 55 appointees of the president could not file declare their assets as enshrined in Article 286 of the Constitution. At the back of that, the president launched the Code of Conduct and gave fresh deadline to the appointees to file gave a deadline which was April 17 for the appointees who failed to do that to file or declare their assets. And so there was another infraction where a number of the appointees couldn't meet that deadline. It was on the back of that that the president actually imposed some salary sanctions where a number of them forfeited about between 1 to 3 months' salaries, which was supposed to be dedicated to the Mahama care. And so the minority leader took the Supreme Court nominee on that act of the president and ask whether or not there's been some infraction. And so the chairman of the committee intervened at that point. And so it was when he was about getting another question through to the nominee that the majority leader, Mahama Yariga, indicated that he wants to get a follow-up question on that. Then the minority leader disagreed, insisting that he does not like such interference, and that is why he indicated proud to his beginning that if the majority leader has any questions, he should go ahead and take his bite before he takes the final bite. The chairman of the committee insisted that there has not been any infraction. In fact, per the orders of Parliament, any member of the committee is allowed to take a follow-up question on a substantive question asked by a different member of the committee. And so he insisted that the majority leader should go ahead and ask the follow-up question. Then the majority leader, when he took the ground, decided to extend his congratulatory message to the nominee before he proceeded. At that point, the majority leader got infuriated and interjected, making the point that he cannot use his follow-up question, which is an interjection to his thoughts, to be extending courtesy call and congratulatory message to the nominee. So he should have just gone ahead to ask the question. That is what led to the back and forth between the three of them. At that point, you would see the deputy minority leader, also deputy ranking on the committee, Madam Patricia PJ, trying to intervene, signaling to the minority leader to take it easy. And so it led to the back and forth. The chairman insisted on his right and allowed the majority leader, Mahama Yariga, to go on and ask his question. Then the second incident occurred when the minority leader, Apanyo Makin, reframed the question when the nominee stayed away from answering the question. He reframed it and asked again. And the chairman of the committee, Bernard Ahiafo, interjected again, saying that, he's asking the same question in a different way. The nominee has stated his points as to whether or not there's a lacuna in the constitution which fails to prescribe a sanction, a particular or specific sanction to appointees who fail to file their assets within a specific time. And that the minority leader did not take kindly at all with the majority, the chairman of the committee, Bernard Ahiafo, who also went on to insist that he cannot, in his word, he cannot be intimidated by the actions of the minority leader, and that he is a man of indomitable spirit, and rule that the nominee should not answer the question, and that if the minority leader has any follow-up question or any other substantive question, he can go ahead and ask that. Then you see the minority leader, Alexander Makin, retract into his seat. He sank into his seat, and after a few seconds came back to utter these words that Lord grant him patience. He said that twice, and then he continued to ask his question. And so it pretty looks like the friction between the two leadership of the committee is not going any time soon as far as the vetting process is concerned. We were thinking that what we saw in the last few days, where there's been peaceful coexistence between the two parties, what we are going to see on the last day of the vetting, only for us to witness what we have witnessed. It is unclear what the temperature will be, because we still have one more nominee to vet who, as we speak, we are getting two conflicting indications. We're getting the indication that the final vetting of the final nominee has been postponed. There's another indication that they will be back to continue. Usually, before they go on break, the committee chairman would have indicated how long the break is going to take and when they will be coming back. But he failed to give us that indication. And so we are just hanging in the balance here, wondering whether or not they will return to continue with the vetting process.
We'll get a lot more deeper into hair vetting, but I'd like to bring to our viewers the very first incident that started the clash, if they haven't been following already. Take a watch.
Chairman, this strategy by the majority, that they have their time. When it gets to my time, then I have follow-up. Anyway, I will yield to you. If you, Chairman, would want to allow these things, no problem. Follow up, and if you think that you'll be distracting me, I don't.
Honourable members, I believe everybody must be treated equally, particularly the leaders. There are instances where the minority leader called for a follow-up question and has been granted the floor to ask a follow-up question. In all the vetting that we've carried out, the record can bear me out. So if the majority leader wants a follow-up question, I think it is in good faith that we ask him to do a follow-up question. Please, majority leader, you have the floor.
Well, this being the first time I'm speaking, let me join colleagues to congratulate my 1 year.
Mr. Chairman, let's be careful what we are doing. It's not good for democracy. If it's a follow-up, let me congratulate my 1 year. If it's a follow-up, you should go straight to the chairman. Don't be doing these things. So it may be politically convenient for you, but tomorrow it will hit us as a parliament.
I can just understand the minority leader this afternoon. Because if the person going to ask the follow-up question is now talking to the nominee for the first time, what is wrong?
But he would have the opportunity to ask his own substantive questions. So he's already indicated to the deputy chair that he will take his turn after me. Please, let us not set a bad precedent. This is not the first time we are doing vetting. Let's stop this. You are the majority. You may not want to delve deeper. Allow us to do our work. What is happening is not good, Mr. Chairman. When we talk, it's like we are sharing your power. Let's stop it. It's not good for the country. It's not good for our image as parliament. And I protest. He says he's going to have his turn.
Honourable members, I do not think any rules of the House has been flouted. So I'll proceed to give the floor to the majority leader. Majority leader, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me join some colleagues to congratulate my 1 year senior at the bar on your nomination to the Supreme Court.
I mean, of course, if you missed the vetting, the full vetting is still on our social media page. You can visit. But James, let's get into it. So Justice Hafisata Amaleboba also addressed the issue of Ghana's child support system. What exactly prompted that response?
So when you read her profile, it indicates that she has some rich experience. In fact, part of her expertise is in family and marriage issues settlement. And so the question was put as to the things children go, especially in the cases of divorce and sharing of properties and all of that, where she opines that we need to deliberate about how we can get support for children, especially at a time where the court is trying to settle such issues when they come up. Earlier, there was questions about how there is undue delay in the settlement of these cases where children are caught up in some of these things. And so for her, she's opining or advocating that we have a national or stakeholder discussion as to how we can provide some support for such children while their parents go through some of these settlements and the court proceedings prolong on some of these issues.
Right, James, again, let me show you at what point she said that.
We have child support in Ghana. And so in the court, you can bring an application to the court for maintenance of a child. In fact, under the Matrimonial Causes Act, you can bring a petition for maintenance without bringing a petition for dissolution of marriage. But when you bring a petition for dissolution of marriage, you can also seek orders for child support, which we call maintenance in this country. And the court will consider it. The court will consider the best interest of the child and make an award looking at the circumstances of the case and the means of the person involved. So we do have child support in Ghana. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Yeah, so Justice Amaleboba addressing child support. But James, she also touched on the need for the three arms of government to be interdependent in order to ensure cohesive administration. What do you say? What did she say particularly?
Well, that has been a conversation, in fact, a question that's been popping up in the last 3 days about whether or not there is exact separation of powers and how the advantages and disadvantages of those two, where she says, although the Constitution prescribes that the three arms of government must be independent from each other, there needs to be a point where all of them would have to interconnect with each other to see to smooth running of the state, especially on matters that diverge from each other. There's been discussion about whether or not the judiciary is wholly independent from the executive, especially, as well as the legislature, where some of the nominees had the view that although there is independence, the judiciary doesn't seem to be financially independent, because sometimes when they present their budgets to Parliament and even the executive tend to cut down those budget allocations to them. And so she believes that at every point in time, although there is the prescription of independence, the three arms of government must at a point interconnect with each other for a smoother running of the state.
Right, James, thank you. But again, I'll show you that at one as well.
Of separation of powers.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Now, the various arms of government, the executive, the judiciary, the legislature, are all independent. But they have to be interdependent as well to ensure that we have cohesive administration of governance. And so we would have a situation where Parliament would approve the budgets of the judiciary. And we have a situation where in the Supreme Court's exercise of its exclusive original jurisdiction, it can have oversight responsibility or review, what is called, informally called, the judicial review powers of the Supreme Court, to determine whether Parliament or the executive are acting in accordance with the Constitution. So even though they are independent, they cannot be separate, because we are running a governance system, and so they must work together to be cohesive. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Right, so the second woman who was appointed by the president, if she goes through, would be headed to the Supreme Court. But James, you were saying earlier that we're quite unsure whether the final vetting or the last nominee, Justice Kweku Teriakabwafo, would probably be vetted today. Is this what you've been picking up?
Exactly. So at the end of every proceeding or every vetting process, when there's supposed to be a break, the chairman of the committee would announce the duration of the break and when we are supposed to return. In fact, at the end of the final vetting of every day, if there is going to be a vetting the next day, he would sometime adjourn and tell us when to reconvene the next day and the names of the nominees who will be vetted. But at this particular ending of the vetting of Justice Hafisata Amaleboba, the chairman did not give us any indication as to when we will be returning and as to whether or not we'll be having the last nominee. The vacuum created by this is filled by some rumors that the last nominee vetting may not come on, but the exact reason hasn't been allocated yet, hasn't been given as to why it will not come on. At a point, even before I joined online, I saw a chief walk into the room and was taking his seat, and someone approached him to speak a few words to him, and then he left the room. And so we are now checking, especially with the clerk to the committee, as to whether or not this vetting will happen. If it will not happen, what reasons may be attributed to that as to why it will not happen. Personally, I had tried to get in touch with the chairman of the committee, Bernard Ahiafo, to confirm from him, but have not been successful yet. We would also explore that avenue and see what the indications will be. But as far as the rest of the media team is concerned, I'm sure the House proceedings on the floor of Parliament is in session 9, so a number of us have been moving towards the chamber itself. We will be confirming that as to whether or not this will happen or not, MFR.
Right, thank you, James. And of course, you want to stay with us here because if indeed that final vetting will happen, it will be Justice Kweku Teria Akabwafo, and we'll all be waiting for that as well. But now let's talk